Hello, everyone. My name is Zenitsu, and you are listening to the Digi Talks podcast, the show that covers various topics from news to meta developments and everything in between for the fine folks who love the Digimon trading card game. Just as a quick reminder, I do try to stream this live over on twitch.tv/Zenitsu, but fear not because it's always going to be uploaded as a YouTube video under the channel of Zenitsu, as well as being on various different podcasting platforms like Spotify for your viewing and listening pleasure. So please feel free to do that whole social media doobly-doo thing and leave that like, follow, subscribe, rating, review, whatever, depending on the platform that you're listening on. It really does help support the podcast, or at least we like to think it does. So today I am with Jay Stewart, and we are going to be talking a little bit more in the broad terms of the TCG space, and it kind of is in correlation to power creep, but it's mostly in correlation to ban and restriction updates and the frequency or lack thereof in which they actually happen. So that's kind of like the broader discussion, but yeah, so we're trying to also still play a little bit of a catch up in terms of like all of the different news topics that have been going on like recently. So I know, Jay Stewart, you were talking about, hey, Time Strangers actually had a survey, and as we all know, Bandai does take their surveys very seriously, so they do take that to heart, and that's like the only way we, the consumers, outside of like our pure and utter disgust towards something, on a mass level, ever gets them to do anything. So, what did their survey actually kind of say, Jay Stewart? Because I don't
So,
remember. I don't remember it at all.
yeah. FYI, also, the survey is no longer available. But if anybody who did participate in it, we all remember that they were asking, how did we find out about the game? What our satisfaction was with the game? They were asking about recommendations. Some of these and even like a history of our Digimon games that we have played. Because I definitely remember there was like a question about like, hey, here's a list of every single Digimon game we've ever come out with. Click on all the ones that you have played. So, and I could have sworn because unfortunately I can't look back at the survey, but there's people even on the Reddit thread, they were saying about like, there was a, it sounded like in the survey that there was the possibility of a game getting remade. I'm not sure which one it would, like, I'm not sure if I recall seeing that specifically. So it sounds like there is possibility that Bandai is considering of re-releasing some of the older games potentially, if that is true. But they were asking about like, are you satisfied? Like, here's one question, for example. How satisfied are you with the amount of content in the game? So practically, they're asking, hey, was $70 worth it for the game? So I have actually completed the game now, finally, and and to me, honestly, there was a lot of content in the game as it was for $70. I mean, like trying to think what's one of the last games I truly felt like $70 was worth the $70. Uh, it honestly has been a hot minute for me. So to me, I was overall satisfied with what was in the game in itself. I know you said you're still working through with the game itself, so obviously I'm not going to spoil anything.
Yeah, like not really trying to spoil anything. It's like a very common known fact that this game involves the Olympus 12, and like the story beat that I'm in is basically going through and helping all of the Olympus 12 so they could join you for the big final fight. Like that's not really that much of a spoiler, if anything. That's like the midway point through the game. Like that's what they set up to do. So that's essentially where I'm at. I think I'm like two or three of the Olympus 12 in, so I'm not very far to the collectathon.
Okay. Yeah, so you're probably like just barely reaching that 50% range if I remember correctly.
Yeah, like I'm pretty safely sure that I'm past the halfway point, but I just need to get on YouTube and stream it more. Even though like the viewership is so not there, and like as much as like the YouTube mindset sucks to be in, and I just need to sit down and accept the fact that this is just not going to perform very well. I'm doing it for me. It's just so hard to bring myself to do that, especially since my life got a lot busier recently.
Yeah.
So,
Um, so one of the other questions, though, that I think it was kind of important that they did ask, they were asking, what are some features that you would like to see in the future Digimon games? So me personally, I think if you were to compare this game to its predecessor, the Cyber Sleuth slash Hacker's Memory, they made a lot of major improvements in the Time Stranger. Obviously, it's not perfect still. There's like some very, I mean, very minor quality of life things that personally I would have kind of liked if they did include. But I think one of the things I mentioned was in my survey was, give me one sec here, I'm trying to pull it up, where actually I had discussed this. Well, I'll go ahead. What so far? What have you thought of the game? Like, what do you think needs to be improved upon?
I think the the farm system I've always kind of hated, and I think that could just be like streamlined into something else. I understand why it exists. I just never really enjoyed it. So the farming aspect, like putting Digimon into the farm and then focusing like an entire sub aspect of the game on the farm, I've always kind of just hated. Like, just let me do that all in my box, and like they gave you better ability to kind of do that. Um, and then I think kind of the social, not really social links, but the social like stat boosts or whatever, that could be a little bit simplified and streamlined as well. So like, how do I raise like courage, and where do I get on the courage slide that I'm looking to get? Like, I think that could be a little bit easier too. Granted, the other games didn't have that, and this does. But if they're going to proceed forward with that, I think really teaching the player how to do that is going to be good. Um, and like the other interesting thing is like from a video game perspective, this is all fine and dandy, but from a TCG perspective, how would they implement those types of mechanics into the TCG is something that I would want them to think about. And I'm not saying they need to design video game mechanics to be implemented into a TCG. I'm just saying like it would be cool if they had the ability to do that. Where it's just like, hey, all of these social idioms, I'll just call them. What if they were kind of just like option cards, where it's just like, oh, I'm going to apply the zealous trait to my Digimon, or like having those be their own like unique little thing, kind of like what we're seeing with the plugins, and that kind of got like a lot of people all up in a tizzy because they decided to make plugins have links, so that opens the doors to various other digital life forms that weren't exactly Digimon, that they could now find ways to put them into the game and have them be more meaningful. So I think like that would be kind of interesting. But as far as like going from Cyber Sleuth, like either of those two games to Time Strangers, I think they just did a lot to one up it, but I've never liked the farm.
Yeah. So, here's the practically what I was saying. These aren't spoilers, so to say. If you at least get to the halfway point, like Anitsu, so you should be clear. But it skipped like barely a minute, and I will briefly go over what I was gonna. My complaints are if you want to keep it spoiler free. But I mentioned that so far my only complaints that I have about the game is they should have an agent skill to where you can increase the scan rates of higher level Digimon potentially. Um, I also put on there that uh, not being able to at least see evolution trees in the Digi farm kind of makes it a little tedious of having to go back and forth between trying to look at the Digimon, pull it out of the farm. You gotta go to the Digivolution thing, take a picture of how you need to train your stats in order to Digivolve it. And I think the only other thing I had a complaint was there was like a kind of an awkward gap when it comes to side quests because once I got to the 95 percentile of the game, it just seemed like all the side quests just kind of spawned in out of nowhere.
Um, yeah, that's probably just because of like endgame cleanup and whatnot, and that's like a normal RPG thing. But that's partially like what you were saying, like why I don't like the farm is because the farm is usually just like this very obtuse thing. It's always been that way, but yeah, like I'm not gonna get too nitty gritty into like all of like what I don't like or what I do like about Time Strangers. I'm not even done with the game yet. Maybe I'll do a review when I'm actually done with the game. Um, but yeah, so like Bandai takes those survey questions to heart, and maybe with the success of Time Strangers, we'll actually see more Digimon games because Time Strangers, like on its release, was like literally the number one game on Steam. It was beating out Pokemon by a pretty decent margin. Granted, yes, Pokemon came out like a week later, not to start Pokemon versus Digimon wars. That's not the point. It's just like this is probably the most successful video game that Digimon has ever had, and Bandai needs to take that momentum and keep going with it. Whether that is through remakes or re-releases or just actually paying attention to the IP and giving us content, because Bandai loves not doing that. Um yeah, there's just a lot more attention that needs to be put on Digimon that Bandai is like clearly not doing.
Yeah, because even just kind of looking back of what Bandai has done, because when Cyber Sleuth came out and everything, it was very successful and popular in kind of around the world at the time. Because at the time it was considered the best Digimon game. And then so what they did is they took the engine of that and then made it with a hacker's memory. So I don't know if they plan on doing that potentially again, where we could see a sequel or a side story of Time Stranger, potentially using that engine, and then they just add on the quality of life improvements.
Yeah, there's a lot that they could do to try to shorten development time. But yeah, if anyone hasn't played Time Strangers, I know Black Friday sales are coming up, so maybe you'll be able to get the game for a little bit cheaper. I'm not expecting like that crazy of sales because it is a newer game, but it also is a Bandai game, and Bandai games sometimes go on sale like really aggressively, really quickly, so who knows. Um Holidays is definitely going to be a good time to pick that up, and I know that the next set is going to be Time Strangers for the Digimon TCG, so it's going to be interesting to see how a lot of the Time Stranger mechanics are going to work themselves into the TCG. Because that's just, Bandai's thing. They've actually been pretty good about bringing lore to card form. Whether that is actually balanced is to be determined, but they're good at it. So that is Time Strangers. And I'm trying to think. Oh yeah, anime. So before we actually get into the TCG, instead of covering the meta, as I've already stated before, we're going to be talking about some of the other Digimon related things. So the anime's going on. I know episode 5 came out, but we're on episode 4 and we just finished episode 4. So the big thing that happened in episode 4 really was kind of like this idea that the beat and the emotions that the tamer has can affect the Digimon. And this was kind of confirmed in episode 4. So the more aggressive somebody is or the more angry is, the more that's going to like leak into the Digimon that has, their little egg thing. So they were implying like Geckomon could Dark Digivolve as like the big overarching takeaway from episode 4.
Was that episode 4? Because I thought it was 3. Episode 4 is the motorcycle chase.
Oh, episode 4 is the motorcycle chase. Oops, I'm getting my episodes mixed up. Yeah, so episode 4 is just a setup episode. Like not to like spoil anything, Motorcycle Mon's in it, and it's just a setup episode. The protagonist is like super angsty because he's just like, I'm only here to find my brother because he wanted to kill the Digimon, and then Glowing Dawn was just like, no, don't do that. We just don't kill Digimon. So the protagonist like basically was fighting with Glowing Dawn, not like physically but verbally, and he's just like, I'm only in this just to find my brother. I do not care about anything else. So episode 4 was a little bit of character development to get him to care a little bit more about Glowing Dawn. And not really gonna go into spoilers too much, but episode 5 wasn't exactly more of that. Episode 5 was a slightly different beat, pun intended. And it was just to show like some other aspects to how Digimon function within the world. Um, so I think this Beat Break show is so far shaping up to be really good. Visually, it looks pretty decent. Sure, sometimes the animation's not always on point. It's to be expected, especially since we already know this is going to literally last an entire year, because this is getting like the full 50 episode treatment that most seasons of Digimon do tend to have.
Yeah, because I mean, so far, like I have seen up to episode 4, and uh, it does actually seem like that Beat Break is actually taking a more darker element or more mature slash serious tone to the Digimon that I've seen so far. Because a lot of the time they're very like it's like kid friendly at first, and then it evolves into the darker thing. But this one's kind of starting off with the potential of like the main character's brother is potentially going to die, talking about how even just like the emotions of the Digimon, like because like you said, episode 3, it was hinting at the idea of a dark evolution for a Gekomon potentially, and it's like we don't usually see that early. I think the earliest dark evolution we've seen has been from Ghost Game. So the fact this one's hinting it so early, it's like it really is. To me, it feels like it is taking a very more mature kind of tone to it, honestly, which I'm kind of surprised about.
I'm okay with the more mature tone, to be honest. Like that's the one thing Digimon's always done that made it stand out comparatively to Pokemon. Again, not trying to fuel the fans on that war, but like Pokemon took pride in staying the same, while Digimon took pride in the idea of you are growing with these characters. These characters are growing. They are more than just standees or caricatures for like tropes or archetypes or just literally an idea. So like ideas change. Like they don't stay the same. And that's kind of why like a lot of people weren't super thrilled with Pokemon, is because it for the most part was stagnant, and Legends Arceus ZA whatever kind of is trying to show that Pokemon's trying to be less stagnant, but at the same time, like not again gonna get too deep into the Pokemon versus Digimon weeds, but it shows how much Pokemon Company actually cares about their IP when they do stuff with it versus Digimon. So like when Digimon does something, usually Bandai at least lets the creators put a lot of love into it, where Pokemon is just literally a machine, and that machine cannot change. And I feel like that's part of Pokemon's current issue, and Digimon definitely never had that issue. Digimon, if anything, had the issue of changing too much, but I digress. I do appreciate that this feels like it literally was what Ghost Games should have been.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, nothing wrong when the series wants to start off like as a kind of kid-friendly adventure at first or anything, but because like that's how you draw in a younger audience and you are able to help them kind of grow and evolve into the story or the world of it.
Yeah, so I'm currently enjoying it. I'm very excited to see what else is going to be in store, especially since in these first like 4 or 5 episodes, they've already done a lot to establish. So, like, my brother's sitting there and he's just like, I just want to see Gekomon evolve already. And I'm just like, you're probably not likely to get that. This is like my hot prediction. That's most likely not going to come true. You're most likely not going to see that until at least episode 10 is when they're going to start thinking about giving you a Gekomon evolution. Because, like, going off of, like, previous formulas, usually episodes 1 through 10 are kind of like your establishing episodes. And then episodes, like, 11 through probably about 25, 30 is usually the first arc where they'll go all the way up into Ultimate, and then sometimes even Mega, depending on the pacing. But most of the time, Ultimate. And then your last little bit, which is going to be like 26 or 31, depending on, again, pacing, through like the end, is where you're going to get their Mega unlocked, and that's going to be the second arc of the show. So that's just my hot prediction as far as when we're going to see Gekkomon evolve. But it is cool on the TCG news side of things
I'm trying,
that. Oh, what?
I was gonna say because like, especially because episode 4, it showed that the I'm trying to think of what Geckomon's tamer's name is.
I'm blanking
I'm
too.
drawing a blank on what Geckomon's tamer just now started used to Geckomon. He really didn't trust Geckomon at first and everything. In episode 4, he kind of started to learn to put trust or faith into Geckomon and everything because he doesn't, like you said or told me last podcast, is that he doesn't like the AI. He doesn't trust it at all. So now he just barely started putting faith into Geckomon. So it wouldn't have made sense if Geckomon evolved so early and he didn't have the trust for him.
Yeah, because he's slowly growing onto Gekkomon and vice versa. So it's obviously they're growing with each other because Gekkomon is still has like very childish vibes to him. So he needs to do his own personal growth more than as well as the protagonist growing with Gekkomon and getting used to him. So there's a lot of good opportunity there. But yeah, so anime is good. Go watch it. We are getting starter decks, or at least a starter deck is confirmed to be Ghost Game, or not Ghost Games, Beat Break. And I think they already said that BT25 is going to be Beat Break. That was a no-brainer. If anyone's curious when BT25 is going to be coming out, that's literally half a year away. Like all the way in like April, May is most likely when we're going to be getting it. So the show should already be half over by the time we get the cards. So that way now there's like no real excuse not to show off basically everything. I guess like the cards are going to kind of spoil maybe a little bit depending on what they're going to do. Most likely based on Bandai's previous trends with how they done anime into card form. They take arcs. So like BT, let's just say BT10's an easy one where it was the first arc of Cross Wars. Then BT11 was the second arc of Cross Wars, and then BT12 was technically the third arc, which was the hero or the boy who leapt through time. So that's kind of like an example on how they do arcs. So we're most likely going to see at least bare minimum 2 sets dedicated to Beat Break. Bare minimum. Whether they're back to back is to be determined, but bare minimum, we're most likely going to be seeing 2 sets.
Yeah, I think it just depends on when the Beat Break set comes out and how far the anime is, because it's supposed to be like what 50 plus episodes
Yeah, it's going to be around
theoretically.
50 episodes.
Yeah, and they release an episode every week, and what a set comes out once every 3 months, give or take. So
A main BT set comes out once every 4 months. Or yeah, no, it's 3 months. My bad. I'm trying to do
yeah,
math. Because there's 4 BT sets a year and 3 supplemental sets a year.
yeah, because I could see Beat Break possibly starting sometime next year if I had to guess, but I would imagine it'd be like the towards the end of the first quarter if they was to, or the beginning of the second quarter is when they would theoretically do it, just to make sure that they can release the set on time, because they're probably not going to have like the megas or anything like that in the first set. It would probably be kind of like what we saw with Ghost Game being introduced, because it would only had the champions and the rookies in there at first, and then the set that followed it had the ultimate, and then the had the mega in the third time go around.
Yeah, so BT25 Dual Revolution is going to be, it's going to have Time Strangers stuff as well. So that's not a surprise. Um, Starter Deck 23 is Beat Break. Starter Deck 24 is Data Squad. So interesting that we're getting Data Squad stuff. And then BT25 is the Dual Revolution, which is going to contain stuff for Beat Break and Time Stranger. Because we do have their descriptions. So BT25, Team's Glowing Dawn from Digimon Beat Break, and DATS from Data Squad. So that's going to be the set to upgrade those starter decks. And then they're going to have dual cards, which everyone's theorizing what those are going to be. I'm not going to pretend like, hey, this is my crazy wild prediction. Bandai's a big boy. They can make their own decisions and they don't need to exactly copy others. So I don't exactly have any wild or crazy guesses as of right now what dual cards are going to represent, because when they first mentioned, let's just say, duo tamers, it literally was just two tamers on a single card. Like that's literally all it meant. So it could be something as simple as that, or it could be something as complex as what we've seen from like Magic the Gathering, where it's double face cards or two cards on one with modularity to it. Like I'm not gonna be guessing. And then they're also gonna have a new rarity, which is Ultimate Rare. So that's gonna be really fun. I'm just trying to go over some of the other starter deck stuff. So Data Squad is going to feature Shine Greymon. No shocker there. It's also going to have the dual card mechanic, which for the starter decks is like whatever. It's an introductory thing. And then they will... Oh, these decks are going to have reprints of the two-colored memory boosts. So,
Okay.
yeah, so I don't know how they're going to be doing that. If one deck is going to have 6 and then the other deck is going to have the other 6, or if they're going to be the same 6 and then they're just going to use like another starter deck or introductory product to reprint the others. But that's generally their trend when they do these like global level staples, is the way I'll just label them. They have to reprint them. They like literally have to. Otherwise, like, they're going to be expensive as all hell and inaccessible. And if the game is literally designed around these cards, which unfortunately the game is now, then they have to make sure those cards are in circulation. Which is why, like, not to spark some LM drama, but did you get any of the LM set?
I honestly thought I did, but since the Bandai Premium website changed and everything, I can't find my order history for it, which is really weird. So I don't even know if I did now or not. If like Bandai's website is like just mind tricking me or what exactly is going on.
You should have gotten an email to basically convert your order.
Yeah, that's like I looked through my emails and I don't have it. So like I'm thinking maybe I didn't, but I swear I did because like I pre-ordered because like I had it in the card with the that new anniversary premium thing, but I can't find the email receipt for it. So it's just like kind of confusing me if I did like kind of thing, or maybe if I did I don't think they would, but if like say if I had bundled the LM set with the that anniversary or the yearly reprint thing where it has that Safaga Ace, the Chaos or not Mirage Galamon, like all those cards in there. Like maybe they're not going to send it to me until after that one releases too, since I bought it all at the same time. But
No,
I don't
because
know. It's
I bought both of them at the exact same time, and I already have my billion bullet set. Um, Unfortunately, I was not able to procure the next LM set. Um, but that's because of life decisions, not because like I didn't want it or I wasn't forced into buying it. And like that's the big problem. Like I understand that a lot of people like these little LM booster boxes. I hate them, and I hate that it's through Bandai Premium. I really do. Don't get me wrong. I understand their purpose on them being there. It's because Literally, Bandai is so bad at distribution for everywhere else or in a lot of areas that this is their answer. Like, that's why the tournament promos were, like, for big tournaments, were the standardized store tournament promos, is because Bandai is really bad at their distribution in various different territories. And there's just a complete inaccessibility of specific cards, let alone promos. And those promos are needed. So it's just like, oh, we're just going to have these players be at a huge disadvantage because they can't get the cards that they need because we're messing up. So like that's partially why the LM stuff is the way that it is.
Well, to be fair, it wasn't like that before with the first one because I remember buying the first one in stores. So that's the one that had the Shine Greymon Ruin mode. So
No, LGSs could have bought them, but that was bought through. So the very first one, LGSs were able to buy them. It was a standard product. It was not a Bandai premium product. And then they just decided for Billion Bullets going forward to just straight up cut it and then just say, hey, this is a Bandai premium product because we need to try to distribute it better in other areas because their distribution chain is like absolutely awful. So, yeah. But like their original answer to getting those cards in players' hands before that was the RB set, but they fucked that up because they decided, hey, let's have good new cards mixed with shitty old cards that now players don't want, but the shitty old cards also had the promos that players didn't get because we were really bad at our jobs. So like yeah, this is why Bandai's like notoriously awful for promo problems, and LMs is basically just promo 2.0. Like they literally created a second branding of promos. It's absolutely mind-boggling and I hate it so much.
yeah, no, because like the LM sets definitely are products that I feel like should be accessible for stores and like just players. Like this whole premium Bandai website for those LM sets, like kind of defeats the purpose point of what they are supposed to be. They're like reprints and to get harder to obtain cards.
You know what the smart thing would have done? Do both. Just do both. Like let stores order it as well as let players order it. And then they have the option. So it's just like, oh, I have like a small little Digimon scene, but our store doesn't have accessibility to Digimon product. Hey, I could just order it online. Or the inverse, it's just like, oh, why do I need to order it online when I could just, support my LGS? It's a win-win if they literally just did both. So, like, and then because they did both, there's more cards in circulation. So that way, players can actually get some of the cards. Because, yeah, some of these new cards are expensive because Bandai is just awful. Bandai is just awful and they are greedy. And I'm saying that because I still play their games and support their terrible business practices because I want to. So I'm fully aware that it is a toxic relationship, but no matter what card game you play, it's always going to be a toxic relationship. I say this in jest, by the way. Like, I'm mad that I'm forced to buy this type of a product, and if I don't buy it, then I'm borderline screwed until the reprints of some of the staple cards come out. So, like, that's just unfortunately how Bandai wants to try to operate, even if it is not super user friendly.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree because like I think even I tried exploring the premium Bandai website after its update, and I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of struggling for a minute there with that. So it's I wouldn't I'm not saying that Bandai's premium website is complete trash or anything, but I definitely was having a struggle with it for a moment, honestly.
Yeah. So, hope everyone got their LM stuff. And I also hate the fact that like Bandai Premium, like you have to buy 6 on the low side, 6 to 10 months in advance. Wild. So
Yeah, that is
wild.
another turn off.
Like, they could just do the Magic type of approach. I'm not saying they have to do, like, oh, we're gonna allow FOMO thing, but, like, Magic has secret layers, which is basically Bandai's Bandai Premium stuff, where they're selling directly to consumers. And they did do a print to demand thing, but that's Wizards. They tend to do that. But what they could do to alleviate shipping issues is preprint. Like, literally just, we've already talked about this in a previous episode, or if not, I've already talked about this on YouTube. Pre-printing stuff, not the worst idea. If you have like an average idea on what your like minimum quantity usually is, like between all of the different Bandai Premium stuff, just pre-print that and then see where the orders are, and then that would allow you to basically ship faster, because now you need to print technically less because you pre-printed. The reason why they can't do that is because they're running 7 TCGs.
Well, here's even the other thing too. It's like, um, I'm almost confident to say that, like, if you look at Premium Bandai, other side of some of their Premium Bandai products, like take for example the Gunpla and everything, you just look at the turnaround of how the Gundam model kits are. It's like you could pre-order a Gundam model kit and you know you're gonna get it by like 1 month time period, and sometimes you can even still get the Premium Bandai Gundam kits from the website months after they've been released and everything. And like as soon as you order it and put it in your cart and buy it, they literally just send it right then and there.
Yeah,
So you're not stuck waiting still.
so there's ways to alleviate how bad Bandai Premium for Digimon is, and I understand why they do it. If anyone's like new and they're curious, basically they take those numbers and they say that's how much we are printing. We're not printing anymore. We're not printing any less. So they're playing it like super safe. It again just really sucks on the consumer side knowing that you bought this product and the cards are relevant for right now, and you're going to be getting it way past their expiration date, which most of the time kind of sucks. They've been doing a little bit better with like their foresight. But I think like the last year, they've only been doing better because the meta has gotten stagnant and the power creep has like reached a ceiling that they have not really passed or pushed past. So like the cards that were good throughout that entire year were still good. So like that was probably just an anomaly. Cuz like in the past most of the time when they print like, oh, this card was played a lot, but 2 sets down the line, now it's like awful. Now the card's like not even seeing any kind of play. They power crept themselves out of their own card being worth anything. Which is funny. But
Yeah, because isn't there like supposed to be like just taking for example, like isn't there like some sort of Nokia kind of reprint that they just recently did for
it's
I
BT5
can't remember.
Nokia. Yeah.
Yeah, they did a BT5 Nokia versus the newest one that everyone uses. Like the fact that like I understand maybe they did it because they thought, oh, BT5 Nokia is just so much harder to obtain. Probably, sure, but
No, they did that because of
it's
reprint
not
equity.
good.
Yeah, no, they did that because they wanted to save reprint equity. And when they don't have any reprint equity. Like that's the ironic thing. Like they didn't want to add more value to the product because of like the invisible thing of reprint equity, where it's just like, oh, if we put too many expensive cards in, then without charging a higher price, then, you know, why are we doing it? So we might as well just use the worst version of a lot of our cards. So yeah. And then they'll have like one actually good card that makes the whole thing worth it, or like considerable at best. That's what they did with Heroines version 1. It's what they do with a lot of their like cards that they reprint. Like the reprint equity is usually incredibly low, and it's offset by one card being their saving grace. So, but yeah, not to like continue shitting or talking about Bandai's business practices. It's just it's always interesting like knowing what actually goes on underneath the hood, or like behind the scenes, but not like truly behind the scenes. It's like a peek behind the curtain, but not fully revealing what's behind the curtain. Because, spoiler alert, again, if anyone's unfamiliar with this, Bandai has literally one printer, and it is themselves. They are very control heavy. Not saying that's not a good thing, because obviously look at Magic with all of the leaks and all of the stuff that they've went through with not doing it in-house. Granted, they don't have any printers to print in-house, but I digress. And Bandai doesn't want to outsource to anywhere because then they don't control their own product as much, and they love control. They are so control heavy. But yeah, so I guess we should actually like spend the last bit of time talking about the actual topic, which is ban and restriction frequency. Because I kind of alluded to Bandai loves to power creep the shit out of their game, and Digimon for a while actually has been doing a pretty good job at maintaining its power creep. Which is shocking to me that they have reached such a high ceiling that they are having a hard time breaking their own ceiling with how high powered the game is. And I'm not saying that like that's a bad thing. Like, they understand where the power dynamic of the game is to the point where they're not trying to hardcore power creep the game, which I think is good. That is a very good thing. Maybe this is me giving them too much credit for, but that's why, like, when you see sets kind of like suck and tank, is because they're not power creeping the game. So we saw that with like BT22. Wasn't power creeping the game. EX10 was not power creeping in the game. Even like BT21 was not power creeping the game. EX9 definitely was not power creeping the game. They were just introducing like maybe one new deck each set that was able to achieve meta status, so to speak. So
Yeah,
oh, go ahead.
yeah, because I was gonna say, like just looking at the newest sets and everything. Yeah, is there a nice, cool support or update for cards? Yes, but if you're a dedicated, hardcore, competitive player, you don't really care about what's in there because none of that has actually majorly shift the meta. I think maybe if anything, it helps out Omnimon at most, if anything. But and maybe there's like one or two cards, but they're like on the cheaper end. You could buy as a single. You don't. There's no need for you to buy booster boxes to try to get your cards because there's nothing in there that screams, "Hey, I might be a potential new threat to your meta."
Yeah, so like uh I'm not going to go over each of the individual sets, but like the power dynamic has been probably at its all-time high since BT20, probably Special Booster 2.0, I would say, because that's when we were just coming off of like BT17, which was another huge power spike, and really the only thing that came out of BT or Special Booster 2.0 was Purple Hybrids, and that was literally a year ago. Like, literally a year ago. And I'm not saying, like, oh, why shouldn't you be able to play decks for a year? And I think it's good. But as we've seen, when they are not able to shift the focus away from the old good stuff, that makes the new stuff tank in sales. So that's why, like, at least, like, power creep is important. But the other aspect, which is the whole point of the topic that I'm trying to get to, is they don't have to power creep the game in order to push sales. They could just leverage a better ban and restriction policy. Because as we've seen with right now going on with Magic the Gathering, Vivi is destroying Standard single-handedly. They go from a Standard that came out, like, reinvented Standard format, comes out with their big tournament, like 15,000 players. The next one, 6,000 players. The next one, 600 players. Like, Standard is tanking because of Wizards' inability to want to do anything to fix their format. And we kind of see some similar types of patterns with the Digimon card game, where it's just like, We could have shit format after shit format using the same handful of decks over and over again. The meta's incredibly stale because nothing really new or powerful is like breaking into the meta or shaking it up to where it's changing matchups to at least make the game feel fresh and interesting again. So, like, we're in this stale environment, and only hyper toxic things are able to exist in this stale environment because of how high power level the game currently is. So, like, I'm not necessarily expecting the next set to do incredibly well because there's not going to be a, like, unless that set is a power creep set, which it shouldn't be because that's not good design philosophy just to try to push sales. They should just leverage a ban and restriction update to help push the sales of the set and shake up the meta for us, the players. Because, believe me, I'm tired of seeing Gallantmon top every single event. He's been in top 16 in every single event since EX8 when we got Gallantmon X Antibody. Gallantmon's just a huge problem that is not going away and will not go away. And without Bandai intervening, there's nothing anyone's going to be doing about it. Like, there's no deck that's going to be coming in that's going to say, now because I exist, Gallantmon is worse. Because Gallantmon's mechanics don't make him worse. that's the sad part.
Yeah, because I mean, it's kind of like what one of the problems that we had with Purple Hybrid, for example, was it's a trash-based deck, and there's not really a lot of interaction with the trash whatsoever. I think the only interaction of trash, even to this day, that we still have, has been the Imperial Jamon Paladin mode, and I think that's an ace too, right? So like you could hard drop it for 9, but you give your opponent 9 memory. Like there's a lot that people can do in the game now with even just 3 or 4 memory. So it's like you're kind of signing your own death warrant with that. But it's like, and the fact that like we even said, Purple Hybrid, like if they don't introduce more ways of answering the trash or even answering option cards, then things aren't going to change. There's just going to be other decks that can abuse those mechanics. And lo and behold, here comes or the Guillemon Growl package, and even the Sukuyamon with the option cards.
Yeah, like, it's, so one of the big things is like matchups, and the fact that like a lot of the high power decks basically don't have any bad matchups is one of the things that makes them so good. So you introduced a deck in EX10 called Rocks and Minerals. This is a hyper degenerate OTK combo based deck similar to what Mirage was doing like in previous formats, where it's just like, yeah, I just do my thing, I don't care about the rest of the game, and then I just magically win. The existence of Rocks and Minerals, though, especially for being such a high-powered deck, means that any source stripping based strategy is going to now be significantly worse, because now they have to navigate and play around your built-in mechanics. So that's an idea on like how matchups can redefine where the current state of the meta is. So now, because of Rocks and Minerals existing, we should, in theory, see less Imperial, because Imperial can't necessarily utilize its source stripping shenanigans off of the Tamer unless they're going to basically screw themselves over because of the mechanics of Rocks and Minerals. So that's just like an idea of the matchup type situation. But the problem is with purple decks is, in general, there's literally nothing to counter the trash, and they all want to do something from the trash and can do something from the trash. Now you introduced a deck called Gallantmon that's supposed to punish the opponent for having a large trash. That was its initial inception. That was the whole point. And then it changed, like they kept changing and redefining how they want Gallantmon to function. And now he kind of just does literally a little bit of everything. It's just like, oh, I'll delete my opponent's Digimon. I'll get rewarded for that. My opponent has large trash. I'll get rewarded for that. My opponent's trying to play out of the trash. Now I have a floodgate that'll prevent them from doing that. So it's just like Gallantmon's just became such an obnoxious force because of the slow building mechanics that he has done, and because he also is an OTK deck, he also could just win for the opponent literally having a Digimon on the field to delete, so he gains a exuberant amount of memory off of it. Like, the deck is just kind of disgusting and not healthy for the game, even if it isn't straight up like OTKing 100% of the time. It's still just a not very great experience because trying to interact with Galamon is also just as hard because it's trying to react to what you're doing, and then if you're taking too long, then they're just going to OTK you. So it's like you're punished if you do, you're punished if you don't do anything.
Yeah, because it does feel like with a lot of the decks now that just it kind of doesn't matter what you do at some times just because they get to a certain board state. It's like there's nothing you can do to respond to them to change the outcome of what's about to happen to you.
No, and I think BT23 was supposed to be a power spike set because they introduced Hoodie Loop, which is like Hoodie was kind of already just an okay-ish thing, but the fact that players were able to take their DNA and basically figure out ways to be able to like, oh, I'm going to DNA Digivolve. I'm going to play out my Digimon because my Digimon plays out a Tamer, which then plays out a Digimon. Then I'm going to DNA. Like, you have this like little insular combo that could kill probably as early as turn 2 if you have the right cards in your hand. And I think like that's, to me, like very clearly designed to be a toxic archetype and power spike the game, but the game's already so high in terms of the power level that it just feels normal. And it's not changing the matchups when they do that, which again is part of the problem. So it's just like, okay, you have another degenerate OTK deck to play with your degenerate OTK deck to play against another degenerate OTK deck. So it's just like, where's the meta actually changing? It's not. And that's part of the big problem, where it's just like, oh, that's why we don't like these types of decks. And then you have a deck like Jesmon, where it's just like, Jesmon is just such an grossly overtuned card, where it's just like, yeah, I could, on turn 2, hard slam my level 5 and have 4 bodies and be protected. And dealt 3 damage to my opponent at the same time. Response? It's like, what are you actually supposed to do in that situation most of the time? And Bandai loves creating these situations to where something should be done, maybe not immediately to the new stuff coming out, but at least to shake up some of the matchups around. They should be hitting the older cards every mainline set to let the new set breathe. Because I think BT22 would have sold way better if it was actually allowed to breathe. And if BT22 was able to breathe, by extension, EX10 was able to breathe. Because they don't need to ban stuff every single set that comes out, as much as they probably should. I think every BT set is good enough, because currently we have 2, in quotation marks, scheduled bans and restrictions a year. We have 1 in the summer and 1 in the winter. And by winter, I mean technically spring. We get 1 for the Worlds, like post-Worlds, and we get 1 for like the mid-year mark, which we just had. So we're reasonably not going to see another ban and restriction update unless something like egregious gets discovered, where the game is like significantly and like grossly unfun and uninteresting. Because I think like out of all of their bans and restrictions, we had 1, maybe 2 emergency ban and restrictions.
Yeah, and I think it was just because of just pure unexpected, unintended loops that just broke the game. Like I think what was it? I think the first one was with the blue Galaxy Tamer. I can't remember her name.
No, well, yeah. So, Saya and Co.
Yeah, Cyan Co was like that one was like an emergency ban and or not actually ban. It was actually an
Choice
emergency pair
restriction.
restriction. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to remember what the second one, but it was like very similar to it.
I'll tell you the second one because it made a lot of people pissed. It was Cross Hearts. It was Cross 4, We literally
Oh
had
yeah, it
two
was.
ban and restriction updates almost literally back to back because they had their scheduled one, and then Cross 4 came out and was absolutely destroying the game single handed because who would have guessed that a one costed rush body that re loops itself because of its own ability, if you have just more Cross 4s in your hand, which he draws you cards, like whoever thought that that was a good design, like I don't know what they were smoking. But I mean, granted, at this point, we have hoodie loop, so what's the actual difference? Like, and that's the part where it's just like, okay, maybe certain things should get taken off, or they should shift their priorities on how they're designing cards. Because if they're gonna keep introducing OTKs, why are you hitting OTKs? Like, just let us play with some of the old ones if you just are literally constantly making new OTKs.
Oh, now I remember what the actual other emergency ban restriction list was. It was when they attempted to hit a Pokemon, but it actually didn't do anything. So they literally still 2 weeks out before we were supposed to get it. They're like, "Hey guys, sorry, we have to hit it because the last hit ban restriction list literally didn't do anything. That was like a month prior to it being hit or
Yeah.
to it being released."
Yeah, so like unless there's like actually this huge problem, um they generally will not ban and restrict cards outside of what their two scheduled windows. And granted, yes, Wizards is doing the exact same thing where it's just like, okay, fine. We understand Vivi is literally ruining our entire game, but for you guys, we're not going to be banning it because that's doing a disservice to you guys who are playing in tournaments, which is like what? The top 1 percentile of players. Like they're talking as such a small handful that like this decision is impacting that like it really shouldn't even be this big of a consideration. We all know Vivi's going to get banned from Magic, at least for standard. Just ban the card. Like what is actually so hard about it? And like sure you could say, "Oh, but the license holder of Final Fantasy says you can't ban anything for X amount of time because that was what was written." I don't know the behind the scenes behind it, but like if a card is ruining a game, just get rid of it. Like it shouldn't let sales of other sets be completely ruined, and it shouldn't let the enjoyability of players be ruined just because you don't want to act on something. Like I could look at where the meta currently is, and I could tell you that probably rocks and minerals. The like, I'll probably end up doing like a more in depth video, but just top cards off the top of my head. Rocks and minerals, the egg should get hit 100%. I think, although it can still combo without the egg, it's just the memory definitely helps.
Yeah, and the fact
Gauntlet,
that they have multiple ways of putting that egg back into the thing.
yeah, which is part of the problem where limitations are actually not doing anything and we actually need to start banning more cards is because a one of is no longer a one of. It's just a stopgap on how often you're going to see it. But if you see it, you're still going to do the same thing you were going to do even if it wasn't restricted because you just needed to see the one copy. That's literally the reason why Matt got banned is because he was a card that basically rendered all limitations completely invalid. And same thing with him. If you limit Matt to one, you just need to see the one Matt. And that was something that, Purple could do very easily and can still do very easily. Um, so yeah, like we actually need to start banning cards more, rather than just slapping them on the wrist and limiting them to one. But I think like at least with rocks and minerals, if you hit like eggs, that's a little bit more impactful because now you have like a 1 in 5 chance of seeing it per game, which isn't going to be happening. Well, I guess technically you could just run less eggs and then you'll see it more often. So like yeah,
Yeah, because
maybe
we have seen like how players have kind of worked around when eggs got hit with the what is that BT14 bow
Bukomon.
not bow Bukumon, yeah. Like they just reduced the number of their eggs, and I think they just only started running three because they're like, well, after the third egg or even sometimes two, it's like you're practically losing the game at that point.
Yeah, you should be winning the game off of your first or second egg if you're playing an OTK deck. Like, there's no reason going past 3 eggs should ever realistically happen. Um, like, because you're just going to be sitting and raising and waiting till you have all your combo pieces and then just combo off. But the egg should get banned or hit in rocks and minerals. We have other Tumblemons. It's going to be okay. Yes, the memory gain is degenerate. That's literally the point. And like going off of their ban and restriction list, they egregious memory generation is one of the reasons why things get hit is because it allows decks to move too quickly. But I digress. Yet they keep printing more. It's so backwards. Groundmon X antibody 100% should have gotten hit. Gallimon actually has a lot of cards that could get hit, to be honest. The Promo Gallant, Medieval Gallant, BT13 Gallant. Like, that's if you're not going to be hitting Gallantmon X Antibody himself. Like, Gallantmon actually has a lot of Gallantmons that are worth hitting. And I'm saying completely remove from the game, not just limit to one, because they're already running, like, one BT13, one Promo, one Medieval. Like, they're just running a toolbox of Gallants, because it doesn't matter, because they all say Gallantmon. And the main card that they're using is just Gallantmon X Antibody. So it's just like, yeah, Gallantmon's in this really weird position where, like, he actually needs a very heavy hand in order to, like, actually fix some of the problems. I know this is, like, an old hot take, but I think Cool Boy kind of still needs to go. That card, like, anytime a good X Antibody deck is in the format, Cool Boy's always played. So it's just like, I wonder. And then I think Vaidmon probably could get hit. The Dog Engine could get hit. Like, there's a lot of, like, hyper egregious, dumb, degenerate memory gain and combo stuff that should get hit that currently isn't. And I'm not saying, like, oh, you need to hit everything. It's just like, no, just, let the game actually be fun to play, instead of, like, just this uninteractive garbage nonsense that we currently have at the high competitive level. Granted, yes, this is just for the high competitive level. I need to stress and emphasize that, because some players will not understand that what I'm talking about is for the high competitive tournament grinders only. Casuals, you can do whatever the fuck you want. It doesn't matter. Like, you're most likely not going to see all of these decks in the same environment all the time. So, like, you could get away with a lot more. This is, again, literally just for the 1% that actually is making the game not fun for everyone else. Because you go up to a locals and some guy's playing a full power Gallantmon deck and you're strolling up with, like, a slightly upgraded starter deck, or even, like, I'll just pick on adventures. It's just like, yeah, you're going to stroll up and run adventures, and you're going to go up against a Gallantmon deck, you're probably going to end up losing that match. So, or, like, just some other goofy, like, fun decks. And, like, fun's just, against the top decks, fun is not allowed to exist. And that's a huge issue. Fun should always be allowed to exist. But that's because the top decks are all doing the same hyper-degenerate bullshit of, let me just sit there, do nothing, gain a whole bunch of passive resources because of, delay cards being a fundamental mistake, and then I'll move out and win the game on the spot. Or I'll move out and you're not able to interact with my Digimon, and then nothing you do actually matters because my Digimon is just going to be this thing that you just cannot do anything about. And I think, like, those two polarizing aspects of Digimon just need to completely be stripped away and gone. And, like, we could have OTKs, just don't let them happen because delay cards let them happen so quickly and efficiently.
Well, it's not even that. It's like, so one of the ways Bandai was trying to counter this whole OTK problem was by introducing ace cards. But then, what was it? Ace cards started becoming too powerful. So they started putting OTK cards with all these protection effects to the point where it's just now, I don't think any deck actually runs aces anymore. Like, I generally don't think so anymore. Like, if they do, it's very, very small fractional compared to what it was before in the past.
So aces were good when the game was at a lower power level in terms of doing the actual goal of, like, actually being a good defensive mechanic. The problem is they realized that, oh, the way that aces currently work, one, if you kill the body, the ace doesn't matter. So that's why we have cards like EX10 Metal Greymon, where that card forces, as long as the opponent has a Digimon for you to interact with, it forces ace positions. And, like, that's the only way that aces are actually playable, is to force the opponent into them. And again, control in Digimon is so bad because the level of aggression is so much higher that, like, it just functionally doesn't matter. Why is Black War Greymon never done anything outside of being a single ace card in random decks? It's because his deck doesn't win games on the spot. Like, when you move out and when you use your resources, you should be winning the game on the spot, again, at a high competitive level. So a deck like Black War Greymon cannot be allowed to exist. Well, I guess, like, not cannot, just isn't allowed to exist because the damage output of everything else in the competitive sphere is just going to win the game the second they do anything, which means either A, if you're sitting on a Black War Greymon, now that card's a liability, or B, if you are waiting for the opponent to put you into a position where your cards are good, that's not going to happen because they're trying to not interact and not engage with you. So it's the same thing like with why Lucemon is not good. He has a lot of things going for him, and his power boost, like, definitely is a very noticeable power boost. It's just literally outside of the EX, 7 or 8? Whatever Lucemon came with the Demon Lord stuff, that's the best
6.
Lucemon. That's 6? Yeah, okay, so EX6. Outside of EX6 Lucemon, everything else in the entire deck is basically garbage. Like, and again, not garbage as in this is just bad. It's compared to high-level competitive Digimon decks, there is a very clear power difference between them, because the big difference between what Lucemon does and a lot of other decks, as much as I like picking on Lucemon, is you do not control the effects of your cards. The opponent controls the effects of your cards. And if you're going up against an opponent with a good sense of the game, you're going to be losing more often than you're going to be winning. And it's literally the only card that redefines that is just EX6 Lucemon. That's it. That is the only card that redefines it, because he's the only card that basically allows you to replace it with another Demon Lord. So that gives you the ability to actually control something. So, yeah. That's why, like, control decks are traditionally not very good, and if they are a control deck, they're usually like a clock or countdown style deck, like Demon Lords or Royal Knights, and then those are so grossly overtuned that they might as well just be aggro decks at this point, where it's just like, yeah, I'm just gonna play this thing that costs 12 for 0 casually because sure. Okay. Oh yeah, and then they just so happen to have Rush too. Okay, sure. Like,
Yeah, because I think what Lucimon's big problem is the fact that it's trying to be another countdown clock deck, but it's doing it at way too high of a cost. And it's so slow because of that high cost that literally all the other clock decks are just able, like, because at the time, like, Lucimon came out and everything, and with like his own full-fledged out deck and everything in EX6, Demon Lords did everything Lucimon wanted to do at a so much better rate and pace.
well, that and even with Lucimon's new stuff, he's still just not effective enough because, again, the only good Lucimon in the entire deck is literally just EX6, and if you're not seeing EX6, you're not going to be able to control anything the opponent does, because the opponent is able to choose if they just want to let you recover or kill one of their things, because that's Lucimon's whole gimmick. It's just like, do you want to take this penalty or do you want to let me recover? And the game's damage output's so high where it's just like, go ahead, recover. I don't care. I'm dealing 7 security in a single swing anyway. What you recovering literally means nothing. And because like not to get too nitty gritty into Lucimon's problems, but like Lucimon's a good example of like this deck costs an exuberantly high amount for it not being a good deck. So why would any player want to waste their efforts outside of for flavor alone? Is from again competitive mindset. Have to put that into giant asterisks. In a competitive mindset, why would any player waste their time with Lucimon when they could just play something like Royal Knights? Like it does not matter. Like Lucimon does not matter. So when a set comes out and supports Lucimon and the deck's already expensive and it hasn't done anything and it's not positioned to do anything, that's where a ban and restriction list might be helpful to be like, okay, we probably should do something about Royal Knights, so that way players might want to actually lean towards Lucimon a little bit more. And you could make that example for like a lot of different decks in the entire game. It's just like the top meta competitive decks are so toxic and constricting that, like, yes, even though we have a good selection of decks to choose from, I think we have like reasonably 6 to 8 of them, but those are the only 6 to 8 decks that have been doing literally anything for an entire year. So it's just like, cool, they're in their own little pocket of competitive space and nothing else outside of that in the high competitive sphere is even remotely relevant. So why are players even paying attention to any of these sets that you're coming out with outside of, oh, that's going to be the one competitive deck to actually maybe do something? So I think like having more bans and restrictions will allow not only the meta to be more fresh, but decks to actually be able to exist a little bit more, and more variety would be introduced into the game, so that way we all aren't going to be playing Gallantmon for 4 years. Like, we were already bitching and complaining that we were playing Mirage for 2 years, and I'm a guilty as charged player. I had a Mirage deck. I still have my Mirage deck. That deck was still good for the 2 years that he was out. And were people tired of seeing it? Yes, they were. Were people annoyed of seeing it? Yes, they were. Was he still one of the best decks, even with his bans and restrictions for a hot second? Yes, he was. He was significantly worse, and people were just like, all right, maybe now's the time I want to think about moving on to something else. But that's literally why bans and restrictions are important. Like, Yu-Gi-Oh! Just came off of, like, a very egregiously bad YCS. It's like well documented how awful that YCS it was, where the finals was 3 total turns. Player A goes first, player B scoops. Player B goes first, player A scoops. Player A goes first, player B scoops. That was the whole game. Like, it was an incredibly unfun and uninteresting set of 2-player solitaire. And what did I was going to say Wizards. What did Yu-Gi-Oh! End up doing? Couple weeks later, ban and restrict cards. It was an emergency ban and restriction to try to make the format a little bit healthier. So they took out a lot of the floodgates that were making a lot of decks like hyper toxic. So, I mean, granted, now they still have the toxic combos that are making the decks toxic, but at least there's less floodgates, so that way more decks should be able to do their thing.
Well, I think the other problem is with Yu-Gi-Oh! Is they keep, like, say they put out a new card and everything. After they get as much money value off it as possible, especially from reprints, that's when they finally ban it, and they replace it with an exact copy of another card that literally did everything that one did, but somehow didn't, because it was like, oh, I get around this out that deck had such a struggle with and everything. And the other thing too is with Yu-Gi-Oh! Is like, you don't need to make a whole archetype deck. You can literally throw in 5 to 7 different archetypes in a deck, and it just works so well.
Yeah, like the example from the YCS was like, I have no idea what any of these archetypes are. I just hear names where it's just like, oh yeah, this is the Yummy Mitsuru deck, or this is the I'm just gonna make up like shit. This is the Danger whatever deck. Like, They
Danger
literally,
Thunder Dragons with like a galaxy package for the Cyber Infinity,
yeah,
and then you have the Guard Dragons to go with it.
yeah, like they just have like small engines that play with each other, and the only thing that like breaks those engines are bridges. So I know we're going from car parts to like just random stuff. So like yes, the thing with Yu-Gi-Oh on how it's breaking itself is you have engines that are incredibly efficient on top of the fact that now you have bridges to bridge into other engines. So like Yu-Gi-Oh is an incredibly awful game. I'm shocked people still play it and enjoy it, especially after that YCS, because that highlights literally everything that's wrong with Yu-Gi-Oh, and that is what Yu-Gi-Oh still is, even with the current ban and restriction update. But at least like the competitive players are happy that they got something, because that shows to them that hey, Konami is actually paying attention to their game, which is more than I could say that Bandai is for literally anything that isn't One Piece. So, like, yeah, I think like they'll care a little bit at the start of new card games life cycles. So like they'll probably care about Gundam for like a year, and then the support will just dry up, and then they'll just look at the numbers and be like, okay, One Piece is still more popular than Gundam. Cool. We're just gonna continue feeding the One Piece basket and treating those players the best, and every other game is just going to be second fiddle in terms of the support that we're actually allowing them to have. Which is sad because I like Digimon. I think a lot of its problems could still be fixed. I know I kept saying that for like the past year, but like if I didn't enjoy the game, I would have just straight up stopped a long time ago. And even when Digimon's like in not a great spot, you could still find something fun and enjoyable in the game, which is what I like doing.
Yeah, because I mean, I still have enjoyment for Digimon, and like it Gundam was okay when I was trying it out, but it to me it just kind of keep in mind, obviously, it's like just now getting into its second set, so but it's gonna be a while before Gundam gets to something where, because Gundam to me, like when obviously the first set, it's just like the moment you run out of cards in your hand, you just kind of are screwed and lose the game at that point. So obviously Gundam would have ways for you to increase your hand size and like the other thing I thought was so weird was like resource system is very important in Gundam, and there's cards out there in the very first set that could easily manipulate and abuse the resource system of spawning out extra resources faster than what you should be. So, like, I'm not saying that it is a problem, but it's just if Bandai's not careful, that's gonna just be increasing the tempo of that card game way too fast.
Well, no, that's Bandai's MO. Like that's they literally make the same mistake over and over again. So it's just like, oh, anything that inherently cheats on the resource system, which the entire game is balanced around, and now now you're playing around with something that's going to break the balance of the game intentionally. It's just like, oh, but that's the whole point. These cards cost, let's just say, 8, and it's really hard to get up to 8, so we need to have them have cheap and efficient ways to get up to 8 faster, so that way their 8 costed card is the equivalent of everyone else's 4 costed card. And it's just like, you're kind of missing the point. Like by doing that, you're kind of just missing the point. Like it's so mind-boggling how a lot of games just want to end up being like Yu-Gi-Oh, where it's just like, let's see where the line is in terms of how far we could push the envelope when it comes to how much we're cheating on our resource system. Like that's why I'm starting to think like delayed based options were probably the biggest sin that Digimon has ever committed in the entire history of the entire card game. I honestly think that delayed based cards did more damage for how they were implemented. I think there was a lot of good that could come from them, but how they were implemented and the continued use of them has proven to be way more toxic and volatile towards how the game actually plays. Because a lot of it is just banking resources. And like that's why like Bandai needs to really watch what they're doing when it comes to their, like, the stuff, because they keep hitting cards that are saying, oh, this card is moving things too fast. We didn't anticipate it for moving this fast. And it's just like, of course not, because the card was designed like way back when. So like you're seeing Jessmon just as an example. What's one of the oldest sister mons it's using? It's using the old CL from BT6. Why is it using the old CL from BT6? Because the on-playability of CL says gain a memory. Well, when you could operate off of next to no memory, any additional memory gain you have is going to be incredibly powerful and broken. Why was Mirage so good? Like when basically he really was like extra broken when we got the BT16 Gaomon, and that's because that's another card that just helps you gain memory early on for next to no cost. So it's just like you have ways upon ways upon ways of cheating on the resource system that's accelerating the game, and then half those cards get banned because they didn't anticipate that when that's what they were designed for. So like Bandai's very intentionally trying to power spike the game. It's just what they're willing to let go is what's in question. And I feel like they should ask that question at this point more often than they are. Like, that's kind of the whole point of, like, the crux of this conversation is the game is in such a high-powered state that they need to ask that question more, because as we're learning from Magic the Gathering, 7 standard sets a year is a lot. Like, and us Digimon players, we're like 7 a year? That's normal now. When it very much clearly shouldn't be. Because we came from 4, we went to 5, then we went to 6, and now we're at 7. Like, it's been increasing and increasing. So who knows next year if we're going to get 8? Like, who honestly knows? Because we could get our 3 EX sets, our 1 reprint set that also has new cards in it. We have the LM side sets. We have our main sets and EX sets. And, like, it's a lot. And that's a lot of cards. And when you have a lot of cards in the card pool, things are going to get broken incredibly fast, especially with how smart players actually are at finding broken shit.
Yeah, and it's not even that. It's like they keep hitting cards and everything because they say it's a problem, but then they continue to print cards that literally that literally create problems of, like, you just hit a card over this. Why did you make a card like this then? Because take Magnamon X Antibody, for example. Obviously they hit cards around it because they're like, oh, the memory gain's too abusive, the protection's so strong, so we had to hit the option card that protects it. But then they continue to print cards that had all these busted in effects of when they digivolve of just uninteraction. So it's just like, what was the point of you hitting all these cards around Magnamon X if you're gonna print cards that literally do the same thing?
Yeah, right. It's just like, oh, here's Machine Dramon, where it's just like as long as he has enough cards in his stack, he basically is pseudo immune to almost everything. And like that card's seeing play because he has the one type of protection that Magnamon doesn't, which is he actually doesn't care if he's blocked. Like that's what literally one of the big things. He doesn't care if he's blocked. He doesn't care if the opponent is able to swing into him or if they're going to ace you in response. He just literally doesn't care because he always has his protections online as long as he has enough inheritables, which the deck has ways to add to his inheritables. So he always is protected. So it's just like that's a good example where it's just like, yes, this was very clearly a problem that they then decided to continue to do. And we see this with all of the OTK decks where it's just like, okay, Rocks and Minerals was designed to be an OTK deck. It didn't do anything because the OTK was too slow, which is fine. Like, that's good. Like, it should have clear weaknesses and deficiencies for the upside of it being an OTK deck. Like, that's literally the point. And now you get Magnetic, where it's just like, oh, because I have Digivolve, I could kind of just get around everything in the entire game. And because I have multiple ways of like setting up my tamers, and my tamers have resilience, and like I have delayed base options that I could sit and chill on while I'm searching for all my pieces. And I just need to do one singular chip damage in order to kill you. Like it's madness. It's just pure madness that they're just like, no. Let's make another OTK deck in the form of Hoodie Loop. And it's just like there's a lot of designer negligence and oversight that's very clearly being displayed here. Like, because I'm 90% sure they didn't think to use the BT22 CS low end to do hoodie loops. And like that should be a sign to them that, hey, we fucked up. We should consider fixing this. So come, like, let the deck run rampant in BT23. Sure, fine, let players have their fun. And then going back into looking at BT24, see where the format is and see, oh, this has like an egregiously high win percentage. Something from this is very clearly broken. We need to do something. Obviously, the answer is to limit Hoodie-mon because you can't, or Chitose. I think like if you hit Chitose, then maybe the deck slows down, but like it has a lot of consistency tools to be able to just sit there and find it and do nothing. And if the other person's not doing anything, then I don't know. There is an easy answer, but they don't like doing those answers. But I don't necessarily think like I don't have their sales metrics to know how often past sets are selling to where they should care about that. So I don't know. I know banning and restricting things is not an easy thing, and I'm sitting here saying that they should do them more often, and they probably should, because if they're at least going to be negligent towards their design, they should at least be a little bit more proactive at making their game good to cover their asses for their own mistakes. So that's kind of my big takeaway. I don't know if you have anything else to add to wrap this up.
Not that I could think of really. I mean, I just the only thing I could think of is like, obviously Bandai is like, I think something that probably just doesn't help is the fact that they keep creating new TCGs. What it seems like almost every year, if not every 2 years. It's just like, okay, can you guys please stop? Because this is kind of the reason why Bushy Road failed in the end. Is like, just don't do what they did. Like, I understand you might have the bigger budget, but you're struggling with what you have already. It's like, just stop what you're doing and just focus on what you have and just try to make the ones you currently have better than what they have been. Because otherwise, we're going to continue to get bad events, bad printing, so to say, of cards or quality control.
And we're not talking the actual physical cards themselves. We're talking about like the text on the cards. Because there's some cards that literally should not have been printed because just how dumb they are. Because their card printing quality is like fine across the field, like, but we're talking like designer negligence and like the actual text on the card, just in context.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, I think like spreading themselves too thin also is definitely not helping. There's a lot of factors that go into this, a lot of them. But at the end of the day, we're just concerned players just wanting the best out of the game that we play and we enjoy and will continue to enjoy. Because if Bandai makes the game more enjoyable, then we have more positive things to talk about. I know this episode was a little bit on the negative side, and I do kind of apologize for that, but I feel like it's a topic that needs to be said and needs to be understood because, like, I took a break from competitive Digimon this year for a very good reason, because it was the least fun I was having, and when I was playing casual decks, I was having more fun with Digimon. And, like, yes, casual decks aren't going to do too well at competitive levels, which would just ruin the excitement, because then what? I'm just paying just to lose, just to have a little bit of, like, a joke every like now and then if I'm able to get off what my deck is trying to do. Um, it didn't sound like a good idea, and like maybe I'll do like a follow up where like competitive Digimon or like competitive aspects of games ruin the games themselves. But that's kind of already a well known thing. I would just be contextualizing it for Digimon. So, that's kind of all I have for this episode. I think this is a good stopping point. So I want to thank everyone for coming out and listening. You mean the absolute world to us, especially since now on YouTube I have actually hit a 5,000 subscriber milestone. So I got to try to come up with something to do for that. Whether it's going to be one video or like a small little series of videos, I don't know. Like maybe a joke video and then an actual like channel update video for the 5,000. We'll see, but that's why I appreciate every single one of you, because without you, we are just guys talking on the internet. So thank you everyone for listening, and we hope to see you all in the next episode. Later.